Then thank you so much. I am Alphonse Muia. I'm actually a youth representative in this Africa member states consultation to craft a common position on climate change, peace, and security. Um, Perhaps if I could just go straight to um, also my role broadly, I think it's important to highlight that I promote youth engagement to climate change processes within the African Union, and also to UNEP on the side of the UN as well. So now, uh, in in lead up to this Africa member states consultation meeting that is currently underway for 3 days here in Nairobi, we have brought together young people to do an Africa-wide youth consultations for them to also give a voice when it comes to issues around climate change, peace and security within the African continent, and capture their perspectives, but also not only policy propositions, but commitments from the young people, because definitely they stand to benefit a lot from the common position around this peace and security. Basically, also because they are the demographic that is hugely affected by the challenges presented by the nexus between climate and security.
Thank you, Alphonse. So maybe on that note, the youth being the biggest demographic in Africa, how are they best placed to combat climate change, especially coming from areas which are affected by issues to do with climate change itself and also issues to do with insecurity. So there's peace instability that is not quite yet defined even under the African Union. So how are the youth best placed to combat such challenges?
Well, basically, as I'm holding this paper here that presents um, the recommendations, just as I said, captured from the consultation that we had with young people from across the world, that basically shows they are concerned to engage in governance issues, in issues that speaks to this particular topic of climate change, peace and security. It's seen by many as an emerging topic. If we talk about the African Union level, this is a topic that we start seeing its roadmap right from 2018, and we see member states getting to have keen focus on how climate change issues contribute to a lot of fragility. We talk about hampering development. We talk about hampering, or destroying livelihoods of people. We talk about youth being at huge stake, and them being pushed to be left with the only option of fighting, or maybe migrating. Basically, if you see the countries that are hugely, within the continent itself, hugely affected by conflicts, there is also a very close correlation with climate change, climate crisis taking toll on these particular people. And we've seen majority of them even being pushed away to leave the continent, to migrate, especially to Southern Europe, in very deplorable conditions. But then, what responses are the youth bringing to the table? First of all, ensuring that even what we see here in the recommendations, we actually have in these policy recommendations 14 very well thought recommendations from the youth. They really want to engage, and already doing that. They want to do research and disseminate it. They want to do robust capacity building. They want even to support their respective governments in execution of these positions, these incredible policies that we see on paper, but hardly on the ground. The young people are bringing all their wisdom, innovativeness, dynamism, and energy to implement. So basically, I'd talk hours on end in terms of how young people can really contribute, because we've already seen in the African continent that young people are now presenting themselves as the biggest resource that the continent has. So basically, if you're doing anything leaving the masses behind, you definitely will be having challenges in ensuring that you can implement whatever you do. And that's why we are glad to have even ourselves here as representation of young people, not only coming as a cosmetic presentation in the member states consultation, but bringing in the ideas and recommendations that have been gathered from the youth themselves.
Thank you so much, Alphonse, for that. Maybe one final question, or rather maybe the second last one. Given the components that you've just shared about the consultations that you held, and also maybe majorly speaking about the policy recommendation, which is very huge and massive, it's the key driving force of any consultations. What next after drafting these consultations, or rather these recommendations by the youth?
Excellent. Now, speaking about the youth engaging right before this member states consultation that is happening here in Nairobi, it shows that the youth have already also prepared themselves to present their recommendations to the member states, for the member states to take them up. And if also you can relate to the presentation that has come out right here on the Africa climate uh, uh, climate security and risk assessment, we've seen quite clearly that it relates a lot. That risk assessment that has been presented here, it's a report and a study that was done across the continent, getting perspectives from grassroots and across over in the continent. It really resonates with the recommendations that we are seeing young people also fronting here. So basically, what is of importance is that young people will have, through these recommendations, will have made their voices heard, and already in the recommendations they are also imploring the member states to include their voice in the common position that will come out. Because if you look at the recommendations, they're actually speaking to how the common position should look like, in order now when it is taken up to higher multilateral events on climate governance. We are speaking here about the climate COPs, for example. Then Africa will have a high bargain that carries along the perspectives of Africans on the issue of climate change, peace, and security. So that's basically the roadmap after the consultation the youth had, which was basically virtual, and it was purely youth-led. We had officials from the African Union coming in to build capacity of the youth, and then youth themselves speaking out. And we've managed to put it together in a document. We are presenting it already to the member states, and then member states will consider these recommendations and amalgamate them in the Africa common position. Then after that, it will navigate other events, including you've heard from the Cabinet Secretariat and Luale here already, proposition to take it up, have a high-level event in COP29, for example. It will be this common position will be presented to the highest level decision-making body of the African Union in February when it convenes, and then it becomes it forms patrimony of the documents that need to be implemented at the African Union level. So we are glad as young people to have that a chance to have our voice heard, and if possible, it's our hope that we'll have a lot of reflections in the common position. Of course, a lot of work is yet to go into that. Thank you.
So one final question as we close this deliberation. What about the Africa Youth Climate Assembly? Are there any new ventures, any new engagements, any new partnerships, given that in the coming year we're going to be having the Africa Climate Summit, although they haven't still determined the country in which the ACS is still going to be placed in. So what is it for ICA, and how is it connected to even such issues as the AU climate, peace and security?
Of course, as you've seen also, Kenya spoke on behalf of the Committee of African heads and heads of states and government on climate change, which is chaired by President Ruto, meaning that whatever is agreed upon here, of course, it is convened from the African Union Commission level by the Department of Political Affairs, Peace and Security, but also the Department of Sustainable Environment and Blue Economy, two departments. And in the end, it's a discussion that goes into climate processes that then means it will come down to the Africa Climate as well, Climate Summit. And speaking about that, even our presence here is a roadmap that has begun with the Africa Youth Climate Assembly process that has now brought a very robust engagement of young people within the continental level issues touching on climate governance. So going forward, of course, the Nairobi Declaration and the events of the Africa Climate Summit, the inaugural Africa Climate Summit, are still under discussion at the African Union level. There is a lot of work going down in the implementation level. So hopefully the biggest kind of demand that we had put out there on institutionalizing youth engagement and making it to be embedded completely at the African Union level around climate issues will be taken up. And of course, we've maintained that close touch. We feel much as it's still not down like really on paper, but we are already highly engaged as young people across the continent on climate processes within the African Union. And going forward, of course, when Africa Climate is reconvening for its second time, we are already on course as well to talk with many actors within the African Union, within governments, and other development partners on convening the Africa Youth Climate Assembly for the second time, but now not as an event, as a process that navigates all intersessional processes. And this is actually one of the intersessional events in between the Africa Climate Summit processes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Alphonse. Is there anything else you would like to add?
Well, what I can actually say is that in the African continent, we see climate issues that then have ripple effects on stability of our countries. Speaking of also fragility, speaking of also, you know, basically human security in the broader sense. And what we see as a response to some of the conflicts that arise out of this is, push back with military, sophisticated equipment and all. But that's not what we basically want. We need to address the root cause, which most of the time we've seen it's confirmed already by studies that we have roots of these challenges in climate crisis. So we need to invest in combating climate crisis, and through that, then we'll have also a ripple effect in having a scale down in some of these conflicts that we have. We are not going to address climate change through the barrel of the gun. It won't work. So I think that's my biggest pointer to this. And of course, because we are just beginning this process, I'm quite hopeful that as an African continent, out of this, we are coming up with a very strong and ambitious position that raises the bargain of the African continent on negotiations around climate change, peace and security agenda. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alphonse. It has been a pleasure to host you.